When I left the Royal Navy, there wasn't much opportunity for a chip frying chef other than frying chips in a pub or a takeaway, and that wasn't my idea of heaven. The reason I left the Navy was because I wanted to do something technical, and at school my mathematics was so poor. When I joined the Navy, they said I could either be a chef or a steward, so I chose chef. I was working freelance for a radio station at the time, but freelance can be a bit shite for paying the rent, and I needed a full-time job, and my first job was a security guard for Burns International at IBM Computers, checking people's passes, which was mind-numbingly boring. And then I spent 4 days in a fish and chip shop. I started on the Monday and walked out on the Friday without my pay because I just hated it so much. And I saw this small newspaper advert asking for somebody interested in sound and lighting. And I certainly had the sound experience, but maybe not the lighting. And I went for the interview on the Thursday. They offered me the job on the Friday, and I started on the Monday morning. It's not a long drive, 30 minutes maybe. It's enough time to play some easy listening tunes to get me in the mood for the day ahead. When I first started, they asked me to give them a minimum of 5 years, and they would send me to college for an 18-month audio video city and guilds course, which I passed in 9 months with distinctions and a bronze medal. So that's not too shabby for a chef, is it? The buildings you can see here can be traced back to 1850, and let me tell you, there's nothing nicer than being out here with your sarnies at lunchtime on a nice day. And in times gone by, a string quartet would play out here, and you'd have cocktails before the summer ball. I mean, just spectacular surroundings to enjoy each day. It really is an exceptional place to spend 35 years of your working life. Sound was a very important part of the courses that were running, and I found they only had very basic equipment: a Tamberg reel-to-reel, a 4-track cassette recorder and a DX7 keyboard, and that was about it. The head of the music department, Michael, threw lots of money at me to get things up and running. In 1987, we're talking Atari 1040 computers, Steinberg Pro 12, Steinberg Master Score. We bought a Yamaha TX81Z and a Fostex 8-track recorder, and we were mixing all that to cassette tape. And there was a nice large room I could have, and a budget, and lots of enthusiasm on my part, and I could build my own studio and then teach people how to use it. What a dream come true. I'll never forget Michael, the head of music. He sat down at a keyboard one day and played some music into the computer, and I printed out the score for him, and his face was a picture. He'd never seen such a thing, and it was remarkable to be able to play a piece of music and then print out the score. And Michael, I'm so sorry you're not with us today. Sleep well, my friend. Thank you for those opportunities you gave me. At these photos you can see Steve and Martin making music in the first version of the studio that I created. Ridiculously talented musicians that were overjoyed to be able to use a computer to create music. There was a company called Thatch Cottage Audio in Cambridge that specialised in selling recording studio packages. I bought an Atari 1040, Steinberg Pro 12, Steinberg Master Score, a Fostex R8, the Yamaha TX81Z, a couple of dynamic mics, a little Tascam reel-to-reel for mastering, a SEC 1282 mixer. I had 2 rooms. I had this small room here and a much larger room next door which we used for live recording, but it was clear to see that I'd have to swap the rooms around to make the small room for vocals and move into the larger room with a much larger mixing desk. A 12-input SEC desk would soon be outgrown. I needed at least 40 inputs. I went back to Michael, he gave me a blank cheque, and I went off back to Thatch Cottage Audio and did a week's residency in studio recording. And I came home with an Allen and Heath Sabre Series 4016 desk and a lot more equipment. I think then we got the Roland MKS sampler and more Atari computers, more microphones, nice pair of Tannoy DC monitors, and of course a lot more knowledge from my residency at the studios at Thatch Cottage. And in this picture you can see on the floor a little computer box, the white computer. That is actually an Atari 1040 mounted in a PC box. It was a kit you could buy to pimp your Atari and add a bit more RAM. I think the limit was about 4 megabytes. No hard drive, just floppy disks. Steve in the blue shirt and Doug in the white shirt, we're teaching them how to use the Sabre desk. Doug is enrolling news on TV as a director and producer these days. You can see 2 monitor screens here. The blue monitor, they're the samples in the Roland MKS 100 sampler, and the white screen is the Atari, that's probably Pro 24, and the Tannoy monitors you can see behind me, well, they're not in the best position, but we had to make do with what we had, and By this time I'd managed to persuade people to let me do as I pleased with these two rooms. We had the glass window put in between, and people queued up for days to get in and do recording. The early days of sampling, you could say a word into a microphone and then play that word up and down the keyboard. It just blew people away. Put some synth strings and drums with it and Bob's your auntie, you've got a hit tune. These photos were taken around 97. Yeah, the studio had grown with the technology. I mean, you can still see the Atari and the DX7, the Atari with its red Cubase dongle. Look a little further, you'll see a Sawtooth G3 Mac, that would be running Cubase, and a rack of synths, EMU Orbit, orchestral, EMU E64 sampler. There's a Tascam digital 8-track there, a Tascam cassette, Drama compressors, and the old studio room is now the vocal booth with AKG mics. Lovely to put a drum kit in there and mic it up. That was a very special day at work when you got to mic up a drum kit. And in the back corner you can see my Levers Rich open reel mastering recorder. I bought that from the BBC for 99 quid, I think, from their redundant department, and we used to master tapes at 15 inches a second. Sadly the Levers Rich is no longer with us, but yeah, I gave that to a very nice man in Hove. This photo sums up my feeling about the studio. I mean, to sit at that mixer and push some knobs and buttons and mix some music is probably my greatest pleasure. I really do miss it since the studio closed. And check out those Tannoy monitors, remote controls on the mixer for DAT and tape, Technics on the left, my hand solder patch bay just under my trainers, and the keyboard on the left, that's for typing titles and info into the mini disc recorders. Back to today, here we are in my office. Super 8 Rescue on my desktop, battered pair of Alesis monitors to keep me company. Do you recognise that Tannoy DC200 sat there holding up the cassette deck? A Studio Spares stage wedge, got a few of those. And, today I have to copy some cassette tapes to hard drive with the G5. I'll put the tape through the Yamaha mixer into the G5 with an M-Audio Firewire sound card. The Yamaha mixer's quite a cute thing, but I just love the cinema display. But look how yellow the original white Mac keyboard has gone. I think we bought this 2002, and it performs as well today as it did when I bought it. Let's have a look behind this door. It's my old office, now my work wife's office. A few old par cans, lovely vintage eMac, which we used to send PowerPoint out to a remote screen. A very technical microwave for a cheeky hot snack, and piles of stuff under my old desk. Reel-to-reel tapes, gosh, I don't even have a reel-to-reel tape machine these days. Drama LX20 compressors, gosh, what lovely things they are. Oh, and a Radio Victory cartoon that was celebrating our final day on air. You can see me there if you look behind Brian Cook. I'm drinking the rum out of his pocket through a straw right behind Dockyard Doris with a toolkit handbag. Radio Victory was such a special moment in my life. It was a great shame they took its licence away and gave it to those twats at Ocean Sound, but there you go. Oh, what do we have here? Fostex MTC box, syncing tape to MIDI, and Final Cut Studio Mac 10.5. Gosh, I never throw anything away. Soldering, something I get a lot of pleasure from. My mum bought me a soldering iron when I was 13 years old. Today I need to make jack to phono so I can connect the cassette deck to the Yamaha mixer and copy some tapes for my friend Sedge. He was a student back in the day and he hasn't heard these tapes of his own music for 30 years, so I'm very happy to be doing this as a favour for him. It's very easy to buy an audio cable from Amazon, but I'd much rather make my own. I've been recycling all the plugs and sockets from the old studio. A hot soldering iron is a very nice thing. If I had a quid for every jack plug I'd soldered, I could have retired a long time ago. Audacity is alive and kicking, recording from the cassette, so the soldering was alright. Sedge will be very happy to hear these files, I'm sure. I really should take a vacuum cleaner to those speakers and suck out the cones, but it's time for a coffee and a smoke outside. Let me take you to the African bean tree outside my office. How lovely to sit here with your coffee and have a cigarette. Back at the office, let's see if this tape's chewed itself up or is it still recording. Oh, it looks alright. I'll leave it to do its thing, nothing chewed up there. Screwdrivers for checking the azimuth on the cassettes as we do them, and you get bonus points if you spot the old spice on my desk. That G5 is so cool. It's one of the earliest ones they ever made. And, you'll notice my healthy supply of Kenko coffee. So if you ever find yourself passing by, bring the biscuits with you. Lovely to see a cine projector on top of my shelf, along with some other old rubbish, a dead mixer, a dead CD player. Would you like a handful of jack plugs? This is my go-to box when I need to solder up an audio lead. Each of those connectors are worth a few quid in today's money, so it makes sense that I never throw anything away. Do you need a wire to connect your grandmother to the Grundig? Oh, my old box of media, gosh. Mini discs to dub off, digital 8 tracks, more mini discs, gosh, I wonder what's on those, and more DAT tapes than you can shake a stick at. I turned on a mini disc player the other day to have a listen to some of these, but typically all these years later the eject mechanism's all stuck, so I'm going to have to take a screwdriver to that. A brand new box of mini discs, gosh, they didn't get used, and how many 8-track tapes I have I really don't know. Cassette tapes, and oh look, CDRW, how many of you had those back in the day? This is rather nice, an Emo Phantom power supply for microphone, handy for going out and about with your portable DAT and the AKG C3000s. Oh, and this is lovely, Aphex Valve Mic Preamp. I use this every day in the studio, really lovely box. And does anyone recognise this USB floppy drive for the Sawtooth Mac? Because of course the Sawtooth didn't have a floppy drive built in, but floppies were still being used back then. Oh, this is special, a little rack of genuine Kenny Everett radio jingle carts. Gosh, I wish I had a cart machine to play them, they'd sound fabulous. An iAmiga zip drive, gosh, who remembers those? That used to be connected to the Sawtooth Mac. Hasn't been plugged in for 20 years. And my most prized microphones, the pair of AKG C3000s, and I'm using one of those to record this voice track. 1989-1990, I was still freelancing for Ocean Sound and Power FM. We did an outside broadcast from Southampton Common, and I was the sound engineer for that. It was sponsored by M&M's, the sweet people. We threw out packets of sweets to the audience. They opened the sweets and threw them back at us as little bullets. Gosh, it half hurt. It was a 3-hour show, and to my right there was a stage where the DJs were, and I sat here, played the tunes and the adverts, and kind of brought the whole thing together. And the money I earned from that gig paid for this pair of AKG mics. Let me take you upstairs and say hello to our Allen and Heath GL desk. The box on the top there is the remote for the video projector that's out in the lighting rig. 2 screens there, 2 G5 Macs, both running QLab software. That's our playout software for audio and video. An 8-way Trantec 5.3 mic flight case. This mixing desk's lovely. I think it was £3,500 when I bought it. And when I bought it, I was considering going digital. The Behringer X32 had just come out. Did I choose that with all of its problems? I mean, I fucking hate Behringer kit. It really is shite. Or did I choose the Allen and Heath analog desk? I can teach with this desk about sound and how sound travels through a mixer. I can't do that with an LCD screen and a knob, can I, on an X32? And this is our ETC Ion lighting desk with 2 fader wings, touch screen. It's about 14 years old now. I think that was £8,500 new, and somewhere inside there Windows XP is still running away making it work. Comes with a modem and a keyboard. It's very posh. Bums on seats time. Say hello to our 212-seat custom-built Auditoria seating system. It cost £46,000 and was built by hand on site over 4 days by half a dozen very nice chaps from Yorkshire. Standing up here 25 years ago, you'd be in mid-air, standing over a cross-arch stage, because of course it hasn't always looked like this while I've been here. Let me take you back to around the year 2000 and look at this shot again. You'd be looking at a full-on cross-arch stage with curtains that sweep across the front and what you might know as an assembly hall, I suppose. It was used for music events, discos, a bar, it was a teaching space, all sorts. But it was still an assembly hall. And times were changing and we needed a proper theatre for what we wanted to do. And my line manager asked me and my work wife one day, what could we do to turn this room into something more useful? And I suggested they make the floor the stage, knock down the arch and put in a raked seating up into the roof. And that's what happened. And all this kit you can see is the night before the builders moved in. They'd had a massive party in there. So this is all the lighting and sound equipment being taken out before the demolition begins. And the photo on the end titles of this video was taken on that stage in '87, I think it was. I can't tell you how much fun I've had on that stage, but it's got to go. Time to tear it all down. I mean, the boards come up first. Years of tap dancing there. It did make me sad to see it go. I spent so many hours rigging heavy old rank strand lanterns above that stage, and we had very large dimmers that made some funny noises when you fade up a lantern. I did tech for Little Shop of Horrors, Godspell, Rocky Horror, and all of our late 1980s exam work went on that stage. I even saw Odyssey sing Native New Yorker on that stage. It was my job to take them to the stage from the dressing room, and I'll never forget the lady in Odyssey taking her high heel stilettos out of a Marks & Spencer's carrier bag. I mean, but times change. I saw my studio close and my job take a new direction. I mean, I'd still be doing sound, but we're going to chuck in some video and theatre. I mean, how fabulous. What do? Do you embrace change, or do you tell it to fuck off? You know, I was given a fabulous Apple Mac G5 for my research into theatre sound. Hell yes, thank you very much. The organisation I work for bought me a computer so I could do research. I mean, it's just wonderful to be in that position. Even though I was seeing this stage be demolished. I filmed all of these shots on DV tape. Our estate manager at the time, a chap called Michael again. Rest in peace, Michael, too. Thank you so much for letting me wear a hard hat and walk around with my camera. It was very important to me to be able to document this, and since you left us, we've had some huge changes. And here we are today, £13,000 worth of KV2 audio, EX10 speakers, 72 circuits of lighting, video projection, 212 seats. That's a Panasonic video projector, connected HDMI over to an Extron video scaler, and that can fill the upstage site really easily. Right, time to get some shit ready, drop the screen, throw up some LED lights, and I'll test everything out with a bit of Super 8 Rescue on the big screen. Oh look, it's a Queen Mother in my theatre. Anyone who tells me the Wolverine Cine Scanner is shit can have a seat in the front row with a chalk ice up your arse. Super 8 Cine film on my Cine screen at work, how lovely. 892 Squadron Pilot there, Chris Badger. So yeah, I have some work to do, some presentations, so I need some microphones for this afternoon. Trantec belt pack, pop in a battery, chuck on a lavalier. We've got an 8-way rack of 5.3 mics, 4 handheld, 4 belt packs. And I'm going to push some routing buttons to put the mic on my speakers. 1, 2, 1, 2. We need a handheld 2. Push some more knobs. Yeah, testing. I'm going to push even more buttons because that's what I do. Fade that up. Point at this, it's like Mary Berry with the Moonalex. Fry until golden brown, drizzle in WD-40 and turn up some knobs. That's some day at work, isn't it? You might be aware that I love cutting cine film to old music, and did you ever wonder where I get all that music? I mean, some of it comes from my own vinyl, but a lot of it comes from this music library collection, which I took from Radio Victory when it closed down. Huge amount of music here from Chapel, KPM, Bruton Music. Most of the stuff from Victory was offered to Ocean Sound, but they didn't want all this old music, so I took them away and they belong to me now. But gosh, what I'm going to do with all these when I retire, I don't know. Maybe start an easy listening touring disco, what do you think? Time to flash up some speakers, projector, LED lights. Meanwhile downstairs the tapes are still running. quick azimuth test with tweeters on the speakers and a cheeky screwdriver. I'm using Cubase SX now. Cubase SX is much nicer than Audacity. The audio editing you can do with Cubase is simply amazing. I mean, Audacity can't even kiss its arse. But yeah, it's just the best bit of software money can buy, I think. And it's a very old version of Cubase, and of course it's for recording MIDI as well. But these days I just use it as an audio editor. Oh, must be pat testing time. How lovely. Do you feel like giving me a hand? The auditoria seating does move in and out, so we get an even larger space if we put the seats away. So here we go. And don't panic, I've checked for stray sandwiches and Coke bottles and handbags. But seeing this move does remind me of the Muppet Show. Don't stick your fingers in there, chef. You ever seen £46,000 worth of metal move like that? Does get a bit dusty under there though. You find a couple of quid, and the odd bag of cheese and onion crisps. Do you fancy a look underneath it? It's controlled by 2 sets of rubber rollers, and I remember that one day that roller you can see there decided to shred all of its rubber all over the floor, and that didn't end well. And not long after we got this, I walked underneath it not even thinking. Gosh, I didn't half bang my head. I had to go and lay down. But I only ever did that the once. It's not somewhere we let people wander about. It's only we go under there just for running cables and things. Time to do some lighting, and I do a bit where I can. You know, I go up ladders and focus lights, but my work wife does all this stuff, and he's very clever with lights. It's nice when he brings the bars down, so I don't have to climb ladders. Lighting is a bit of a dark art, but I can put you in a spotlight. My work wife does paint with light. I mean, he's without doubt one of the best lighting engineers and lighting designers I've ever known. I've been working with him for 25 years. He's in the left on this show photo. This is the crew for the TV Avengers programme, Anniversary, their 50th. And Paul O'Grady hosted a weekend in the theatre, seen here on stage with Honor Blackman talking about being Emma Peel. And I'm doing radio mics and video for this gig, and boy did we get drunk that weekend. In fact, Paul got so drunk he was late on Sunday for the interview with Linda Thorson. And a photo with Paul and my husband outside the men's toilets at the bar afterwards. I mean, where else would you have a photo taken with Paul O'Grady? Cue the Avengers theme, for fuck's sake. Oh look, there's Rupert Everett. I was mincing through the foyer and bumped into him and asked him if I could have a selfie. I love that man, long-time hero of mine. Just when you least expect it, there's a Hollywood legend outside your office. Speaking of legends, the Radiophonic Workshop. I've been huge fans of them since I was a boy, and the tunes they have made over the years, gosh. We got Roger Limb, Paddy Kingsland, Peter Howell, Dick Mills, Mark Ayres, and a later addition, Kieran Pepper, their drummer. But for me, meeting Paddy Kingsland was just the best moment ever. And they were doing a live tour, and we were the first stop on the live tour, and it was my birthday as well, so gosh, what a birthday present that was. You can almost hear the Doctor Who music in the background, gosh. And my job for this gig was to make sure the video screen worked, and helping with the get-in and rigging the theatre for this, and my god did they bring a lot of equipment with them. A selfie with Kieran Pepper, a selfie with Paddy Kingsland, gosh. But typically the next day we had to strip the entire theatre out because we'd recently had a flood, and maple floors don't like water, so the whole lot had to come up. Auditoria came and moved the seatings. Some lovely men came and ripped up the maple, and some other nice men came and put in a £26,000 sprung floor. My work wife mops it all clean. I try not to mop floors these days. My days of scrubbing out are long gone. Oh, fuck it, let the lighting dry the stage out, it's much easier. I'm going to wrap this up by showing you some time-lapse of some of the things that we've done. This fine example is a local music society that rented the space out, and it was a Friday afternoon. The chap presenting, very knowledgeable man about something or other, I can't remember. It was just my job to make it happen. And the night before, we just finished a run of shows and gone night clubbing. I think I made it home around 2 a.m. I had to be back in the theatre by noon. Boy, did my head hurt. I mean, there's him banging out tunes on a piano and a harpsichord. I mean, it was a very nice presentation and I did learn something, but fuck me, my head was banging that day. I'll never forget it. Couldn't wait for it to be over and go home for the weekend. I didn't even get invited for nibbles and a sherry, which was disappointing because I could have eaten a scabby horse between 2 bales of hay about now. But, at least it's nearly over and I can go home and crash on the sofa. But I really do have some amazing days on this stage. Here's some time-lapse of some exam work, and what you're seeing now is an example of some technical rehearsals, lighting rehearsals. And technical rehearsals go on forever and ever, but they are so much fun. So, there you go. I hope you've enjoyed your time at work with me. If you want to ask a question, comment down below. I'm hoping Super 8 Rescue will have some more cine-film coming in, but we're a bit dry at the moment, so there we are. I remember the very first show I did the lighting and sound for, it was Godspell. And when it was over, I insisted on a Spielberg-type photo to remind me of it, and I'm so glad I did, and I'm very pleased to share it with you. Thanks for watching. Thanks, as always, for subscribing. See you next time.